Hello and welcome to A Young Theatre in Isolation. I'm Nina and I'm one of our theatre critics, and today I'm here with Ellice Stevens. Hi Ellice.
Hello. Hey.
So Ellice studied English and theatre studies at university. She's an actress and co-director of award-winning multimedia theatre company Breach. With Breach, she's starred in several productions, most recently including It's True, It's True, It's True, which is until the 17th of May airing online. It's True, It's True, It's True won a Fringe First Award and Total Theatre Award, and I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was an amazing piece of theatre. Breach Theatre particularly create politically engaged and shows that combine a sort of drama and documentary style. They're often based on true fact, basically. Is there anything that I've missed there?
No, that's pretty much it. But It's True didn't win a Total Theatre Award. I should say, just in case Total Theatre come and say that we're stealing their awards. I know, but everything else is accurate.
That's very, very good. Okay, so how are you keeping sane in lockdown? Or are you keeping sane in lockdown?
I don't know if I am keeping sane in lockdown. I started lockdown with long hair and I cut all my hair off in a moment of hysteria and hormonal imbalance. I mean, I feel like it's just been quite brutal, hasn't it? Because everything changed, and I feel like, I mean, I'm sure we'll get on to talking about this, but there have been so many things to learn in locking down about who we are and how we get through the day when our jobs are taken away from us, especially when those jobs were so precarious in nature anyway, that we sort of probably invested all our time, unpaid time and otherwise, into getting it to what it was. And when it disappears, I suddenly came out of it and I just didn't really know what to do with myself or who I was. So the answer to that is probably I took up knitting. This is one thing I knit. It wasn't actually here to show you, but I will show you. This is my alpaca, the first thing I knit.
Got a name, or she got a name?
No, not yet. I'm sort of waiting for it to come. This bow is a bit cringe. I'll take the bow off. I knit my nan a cap for its birthday, and for her birthday, and I put them side by side for a family portrait. So knitting, I think, knitting and crafting.
That's good. I want to do crochet. I feel like everyone's really into crochet at the moment.
Yeah,
like embroidery as well.
So I started with embroidery and I haven't got very far with it. And then when we first went into lockdown, I went and stayed with my friend Anna, because it was a bit of a drama about where I didn't know where to be, and she tried to teach me to crochet, and I was so proud of this. I thought this was a square for a really long time, and I now realise it isn't. It is just, well, it's a rag in it, but it's okay. I just put my mug on it, and then I'm still quite proud. I mean, that feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only 2 months ago.
Yeah, I've tried to teach myself to crochet. I have like all the needles and things, or hooks. They're not called needles, are they?
Yeah.
I admire those people that can do it. I'm not very good. I'm not very talented, basically.
No, I don't think that's true. I'm sure you are, but it hurt my hand when I was trying to do it. And Anna, I think, had only been doing it for a week, and she'd crocheted herself a really gorgeous top. And I was so jealous of how nimble she was, because I feel like this is actually quite representative of my abilities with anything that's quite agile.
I think you've done well there. Crochet is hard. It's actually really hard.
It is hard.
And people who are good at it on YouTube just make it look so easy as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is something to be proud of.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I feel affectionately towards it.
You've got to keep yourself sane. So
yeah, you do.
That is good. I feel like theatre is, I mean, maybe it's just because I follow it so avidly, but it feels like theatre is something like the entertainment and arts is so hard hit by this lockdown, and I feel like it's a very difficult position to be in right now for a lot of artists.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, well, I know it is for a lot of reasons. I mean, the loss of work and the lack of support that was very evident at the beginning of this, I think, was one thing that was terrifying. I think everyone who lost their projects that they had, it takes so long to plan a theatre tour and to make a piece of work that you're then going to tour. So when it gets cancelled, it isn't as if you just think it will be picked up afterwards. Like, there's really a question about what everything's going to look like the other side of this. So I know for myself and for a lot of the people that I've been talking to who have been my support network, and I feel like I've been a part of theirs, everyone has been grieving a lot for the things that they've lost. And yeah, it's been really hard, and I think it is still really, really hard. And I only feel like it's in the last couple of weeks that I've sort of started to muddle my way out of the haze of it. I don't know, it's just it's difficult.
It's a really weird time. Hopefully at some point the government will inject some sort of funding package like Germany did. But we'll see.
We will.
Bated breath on that one. Let's focus on something more positive though.
Okay, do it.
Your amazing piece with Breach Theatre, It's True. So is the story from 1612, is that right?
It is,
of Artemisia. Do you want to tell us a bit about how you kind of came up with the idea and the process of creating it?
So we originally came up with the idea because Billy, who directed the show, and he is one of the other co-founders of the company, we were actually having a meeting about the show we'd done before, and he was like, I've just read this article, and I know we're not talking about new ideas, but I just really think we should look into this woman. And it was an article that Jonathan Jones had written for The Guardian when there was an exhibition at the National Gallery called Beyond Caravaggio. And all it said in the article was that she painted Judith and Holofernes, and transcripts existed from the rape trial that she was involved in 1612. And I think for us, being a company that at that point had made, I think it was 3 historical adaptations, it kind of ticked a lot of our boxes, and it really intrigued us. So it took quite a while to find the transcripts. They're actually just sat in the back of a book, but it took us a while to get the book. We had to get it on a second-hand retailer, and then it was sent from America. So like a month later it turned up, and then we read them, and it was just so obvious that we had to make it. And I think at that point it was crossing over with a lot of our interests as well. Billy had really wanted to make a show which was more character driven. Dorothy was feeling that too. She was doing a directing fiction MA at Goldsmiths, and so she really wanted to work with like storyboarding on a different way to how we had before. And I really wanted to make something that was all female. So it's really weird. In the first meeting we were like, okay, this could be something, but we haven't actually read anything about it. And then I think as soon as we started reading it, it was like, oh yeah, that's a show we really, really want to make. And I mean, it was such a satisfying process, I think, for all of us for that reason. Difficult and very vulnerable. We actually started making it before the Me Too moment really sort of broke, and before the Weinstein accounts had begun coming out. So I mean, that's not to say we knew what we were making it in response to. We knew we were making it in terms of all the things it was in conversation with, but it wasn't quite as explicit as it became through the time that we made it. It's really weird, that show, actually. It's very strangely become retrospectively more relevant at every interval. So we'd already pitched it and been making it, and then it was the Me Too. And then we had a month in between when we brought it out in Edinburgh for the first time. We transferred to London. And in that month, it was the Kavanagh trial. And it's just really strange. It's really weird. But also, I'm getting sort of like, isn't that weird? But really, it's just depressing, because every time we go back to do that show, it feels like there's a new injection of rage and anger that it's in correspondence with. And I feel very grateful to be a part of it, because I think that has actually kept me sane the last couple of years doing that show. Because it's given somewhere to put it. But
I think,
sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I'm just listening avidly.
Okay.
No, I completely agree. I think what's kind of scary about it is how I feel like I can't even imagine how long in the future it will stay. Unfortunately, it will stay incredibly relevant. Like, its continuing relevance is because the subject matter is stuff we still struggle with. This idea of, they're accusing her and saying basically like she was asking for it, and these sort of ideas that we see all the time in like rape cases, they're not, those things aren't changing. Those things, they're just ever popping up again and again. And it's amazing that we have it's amazing that Me Too has come through, and it's amazing that Weinstein has been sent to prison, but at the end of the day, this is going to continue to happen, and stories like this are so important because they give a voice, they show it's not a new thing as well. They give a voice to women from the past as well as the present of their experiences.
Yeah, I think it's I think you're right. And I think when I first read it, for me it was the really small things as part of the testimonies that made me feel like it could have been something from now. So Artemisia talks about how a guy tries to sleep with her. This isn't Tassie, this is Cosimo, his friend.
Yeah.
He tries to sleep with her, and when she says no, he says he's going to tell everyone that she did it anyway. And a version of that happened to me when I was at school, and it happened to one of my friends when she was at school, and then it happened to people at uni. And it just, even the small things in it that are kind of a texture of that world are so relevant now. And I felt like for us, we didn't try and make a show which was encapsulating the Me Too movement or trying to speak for everyone, but because it was so relevant, we just tried to tell that story the best that we could, knowing that it would be in correspondence with a lot of that, and that we could get strength and hope from telling Artemisia's story of that particular moment, but also telling all the things like she went on to do after. I think it felt it felt like a conversation about that world, but by not having a conversation about it. And I think that's where the strength I feel when I'm doing it comes from.
Yeah, it's very story focused on that specific story, and it's speaking to wider things, but it's very much driven by that character and her experience. And I think that makes it more powerful in a way, because it feels like very true to her. I don't know how to explain that better.
No, you're right. But also we were really driven by the fact that we felt like she deserved to have her story told in a way that was caring and accurate to her. So we decided early on that we didn't want to create a piece of drama that really was like, oh, did Tassie do it or didn't he? Because we were like, that's just not the story we want to tell. And there had been a film of Artemisia's life which rewrote this whole story, so that when she's tortured, instead of saying it's true, they rewrote it so that she says, I love him, and Tassie's like, no, please free her. It's a film from the 90s, and we watched it when we were first researching it, and we turned it off about halfway through and then went back to it because we'd read the transcripts, and the idea that someone had read those transcripts as research and rewritten a narrative into that, making it into a love story, just felt so sickening. So we just knew we wanted to tell her story. But then it's interesting because I've since worked with I've done some work with the National Gallery around their Artemisia exhibition, and I was talking to one of the women who translated it or found it in the archives, and I said to her, it's just incredible that Artemisia, this artist who went on to do this and this, she couldn't write at this age, but we've got her voice, we can just hear it and we know who she is. And she was like, but we don't know who she is because she's been coached by a lawyer. And I was just like stumped, like, oh. But I think regardless of all those things, it is just this wild thing knowing that she couldn't write, and we don't have letters to give us any sense of who she was at that point. But what we do know is she was, extraordinarily young and bold and forthright, and she didn't crack under pressure, and she stood her ground. And actually, just by saying her words, whether coached by a lawyer or not, she still said them. It gives you such a sense of who she is. And in this geeky way of looking at art and knowing there's no other way to find out anything about her, that really made us feel very connected to her and really want to tell her story in the way that we felt it should be told.
No, and I think it was really, really brilliantly done. I loved the way that you used her paintings and looked specifically at, like, is it Susanna at the well with the two men who are watching her, and how different her, I went and like googled her paintings, like properly look at it to see, and I was like, wow, that is so different to other interpretations. And I feel like that could only probably come from a woman, especially in those times, because of the way that men and women will read the story. Men, especially in those times, didn't have that experience of being like watched washing at the well and assume, like, I don't know, they made it into where she wanted it, and she is the only piece of art where you can see, no, she's like, get away from me.
Yeah, I do feel like she's very, very good at mapping her female experience onto the canvas, and you can see it in a breaking convention to have Susanna not tantalizing and flirting with the elders, but to have a very clear and recognizable look of disgust, and that the way the body's positioned. I mean, yeah, I feel like it could have only come from a woman, and she was one of the only female painters at that time. So it's so important that she's part of that history of how those stories were visually represented through art.
Yeah, I think also you telling her story is so important, because people say, oh, the reason there aren't female artists in galleries is because there weren't any, and I'm like, that's not actually true.
That's not true. Yeah, they had to break the rules to get there. I'm sure they couldn't buy their own paints, but it's not true.
Yeah, it's not true, and a lot of them have kind of been forgotten, and so it is ever more important to remember their stories. So what are you working on in lockdown at the moment? Other than your crochet and your knitting?
My knitting. What am I working on? To be honest, bits and pieces, but not no like huge work of art. I had that makes it sound like I could have done that even if we weren't in lockdown. I couldn't. I'm still very much getting my head around the whole like productivity thing. It's really hard because I think so I'm staying with my mum at the moment. I had to leave London, and it's really weird going through this whole thing of feeling like I'm living with back in a family dynamic that I haven't been in for so long. I mean, I'm 28, and it's sort of like, I don't know, back in that mother-daughter dynamic. It's very interesting. And she keeps asking me like, oh, so what have you been doing? What have you been working on? And I keep sitting down at the computer to do things or in front of a notebook, and it's just nothing has really been coming. It didn't come for weeks. Like there wasn't any.
Though.
Yeah, I think it is fine. I've stopped belittling myself for it, because I think I get very anxious about social media anyway, so I'm never really on it. I occasionally just go on, drop one post, and then walk away for a week because I can't stand the idea of any backlash. Or sort of, I don't know, it just freaks me out. What was I saying? So I kept sitting down to sort of write something, and it just wasn't happening. And I just haven't been engaging with theatre in any form, like either on social media. I haven't really been watching anything, haven't really been writing anything. And I think it came from this sense of I'd lost all my work suddenly. I lost a big sense of my identity and who I was, which has really scared me actually the last few weeks. And it just all felt pointless and really, really, really useless. And that isn't true. Like theatre obviously isn't pointless and it isn't useless. And at the end of this, it's going to be such a healer for all of us. But just in that period, I really, really found that I couldn't engage. So I haven't been doing loads, but what I have been doing is journaling for like the first time ever. And it's a very different type of writing to what I'd done. I never normally write sort of like essays or personal pieces of writing, and I have no intention to show them to anyone. But I think because everything felt like it fell around me and I suddenly couldn't write because I didn't feel strong in myself, it's actually made this time a period that I stepped away, and I'm using writing to sort of answer some questions that I'd maybe been trying to ask myself for a long time, but I hadn't really felt like I had time and space to do because I was working nonstop trying to make something else happen. So I feel like actively taking a break is okay, but I do feel like I want to get back to it, because I think all that stuff about not engaging on social media and not talking to people is something that I'm now really missing, and I feel quite lonely in it. And I'm just really desperate for when this all ends to feel stronger as an individual, going back into a room and back into communal spaces with people and engaging in conversations about what has happened and what can happen next, and feeling like this time has actually helped me be in a better position to start doing that after. But in this period I felt quite raw and vulnerable and sad, and I just haven't really done anything apart from, like chores again. I'm just like helping my mum with her flat, and that's so weird, but it's been lovely. It's been really nice just sort of going back to feeling
I think that's actually a really important answer, because I think that there's a lot of pressure on social media. You have to be productive all the time, you have to always be doing something, and actually I don't want to use the word unprecedented, but I'm going to use the word unprecedented. This is such a weird time, and you can't, if there's one time to take some time for yourself and to like ask yourself these questions, get your thoughts out and really reflect and just kind of enjoy and kind of have the time to do that, now is the time. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on people, particularly in the arts. I feel bad because I've now asked this question, what are you doing? You don't have to be doing anything, you know, that there is nothing wrong with doing nothing.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with asking the question either, because I think this has been like an amazing time where, from what I have seen online, there are people who have never written who are engaging in writing. I've never knit before, and it's my lifeline at the moment. Like, we're all doing new things. And actually, I think we had a breach meeting today, and we were talking about volunteering, and, you know, we've all been doing various things in that realm of community rather than like the theatre community. So like, it's still existing, it's just being funneled into different ways. And it's when I think it's taken me a while to think about that, because I was like, well, productivity can only exist within this weird like haze of theatre where there is actually no clear progression and there is no clear ladder, but we're all doing stuff trying to get somewhere, we just don't know where it is. And actually, I think all those values which are at the heart of theatre, of experimenting and expression and community and engaging, they are actually still there for like everyone I'm talking to. They're just existing in different ways, but because they're not as directly translatable into the theatre world, we feel like we've stepped out of it. But I think it's only gonna help the other side of it getting back into it. I don't know, because it's kind of shaping the way I'm thinking about what I want to do next and how like theatre can grow out of this. But it just hasn't come from me doing what I've done for the last 4 years, which is sitting down and writing in quite a traditional sense with Billy, like on a Google Doc. We've both just been doing separate things in very separate communities because we're in different cities, and Dorothy doing the same. And like, then we're all meeting up and talking, and I don't know, I think it'll come back together, but we're just doing the same thing we've always just done, just in very, very different ways. We're just going to do a show where the whole set's made out of knitting. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I'd come.
Yeah.
Quite different. So let's go back to sort of what got you interested in theatre. So what are your sort of earliest memories of theatre? Oh my goodness, how unprofessional. My phone isn't on silent. I'm so sorry.
No, please, that's not a thing. It just makes me feel immediately like, is anyone talking to me? And the answer is no.
Number one thing, turn your phone off. Number two, shut my cat out the room so she doesn't jump up onto my shoulder.
Oh no, but that would have been lovely, a calming presence. I've already brought the alpaca in, so
she is lovely, to be fair. So what are your first memories of theatre? It could be the Nativity, it could be, you know, anything really.
It probably was the Nativity, actually. I was always a shepherd or a sort of narrator, very much always that, which was great, love that. I don't know, I'm trying to think about it. So I was in a youth theatre, community youth theatre in Portsmouth, called Victoryland, and my mum enrolled me into that because I was very, very shy. I was very shy up until the age of about, well, till I went to uni, really. And I never spoke to anyone, and I didn't really have any friends there. And I think she just hoped it would push it out of me, and it very much didn't. And I was shy sort of through school, quite loud with my friends, but just shy in groups and shy in front of people. And yeah, it was a really, I'll be honest, it's weird that I've ended up doing theatre. I've had this conversation with people before, and I think people always think I'm lying, but I never wanted to be a performer. The idea of actually standing on a stage and talking in front of people made me feel sick, and I still get really, really bad stomach cramps pretty much every time before I perform, and can end up sat on the floor in a crouching position and then walk out and do the show. I don't feel like it comes easy to me, but we sort of fell into breach when we were at uni, and it just genuinely wasn't anything I thought I would do. But I think we all just felt very fortunate about meeting each other and meeting collaborators who made us feel like we could do it and we could tell some stories and occupy space. And I think that feeling of finding people that you can work with and be honest with and create in a safe space with, but also be challenged, is addictive. So it's meant that I haven't stopped doing it, even though there are so many signs which are just like, please stop doing it. Your gut can't take it. So yeah, that's kind of it. But I didn't grow up watching theatre. No one in my family is a particular lover of the arts. I think we probably went to see a pantomime in Portsmouth, but I think that's kind of it. Like there wasn't really much engagement with the arts. I think it was a bit of a surprise to everyone.
Did you do it at school at all?
Yeah, I did it at GCSE, and I did it at A level, but there were only a few of us in the class, and actually that's when my best friends sort of came from. I probably did it because my best friends were doing it, and then now we're all still best friends, and we've gone into, well, most of us have gone into theatre in one form or the other. But I remember saying to someone at my school, I was originally applying to do English literature, and to be honest, I probably shouldn't have applied for university. I don't think it was for me. It definitely wasn't that first year, and I didn't get in the first year, and I'm so glad I actually didn't get the grades, because I feel like I wouldn't have been ready. But I was applying to do English literature, I think, because I felt like I had to, and I decided to change quite last minute to English and theatre, and it was one of the only times I had an interaction with some of the teachers who actually called me in and tried to convince me not to do it, and to do it as in an extracurricular capacity. And I think by that point I was quite I wasn't particularly invested in school anyway, so I was like, that makes me sound like I was like cool and rebellious. I wasn't. I was shy, timid, did what I told, but I just didn't feel like it was for me. And for some reason I just did it anyway and applied for it, and it has been the best thing, because without it I wouldn't have met Billy and Dorothy and Grace and Anna and all these people that I made with early, and which have really sort of like shaped this thing that I love to do. But it was a fluke.
Did you go to university near home, or did you go quite far away?
No, I went to Warwick University.
Yeah.
Well, again, fluky and weird. It wasn't where I wanted to go originally, and then I met someone in my first year who was like, I want to go to Warwick, and because I hadn't got the grades the first year, I didn't know where to apply the next year, and I was like, hey, that person I met once really liked Warwick, so I'll apply there. And then went, and I had a fun interview with someone who didn't make me feel stupid, which was a bit of a thing with other unis. So I chose it, and then the first day I saw that person, they were like, you're here now, and I was like, yes, because you really love this uni and I just took your passion. And we are still friends now, but it's just a weird thing.
I've heard really good things about that course though at Warwick. I've heard it's like a really nice environment.
I don't really know anymore. I think there are, only because I don't know, because I haven't been there. I mean, I loved the teachers, particularly the teachers in the English department that were teaching the English and theatre studies students. I think there is a difficulty in no one really, or at least when we were there, it might not be the case now. It felt like no one really took the English and theatre students in as like their home department. So we tried to, when we made our first show, the Beanfield, we tried to use some of the drama rehearsal rooms and were told we weren't allowed to. I would hope that isn't the case now, that people making work are allowed to use those rooms. But it was a bit of a, it was a weird thing. Oh no, that's going to go in, it's going to look like I'm dissing Warwick. But it was also a place that I really felt, I feel very grateful to it as a place. It just, I think with everything, it's just difficult to make work if you're doing a academic course and no one really, I don't know, and no department really claims responsibility for you. But it wasn't that bad. It was great. It was a good few years.
I think that obviously you had a good few years because it set you up with the people that you work with now, and I guess that's something that's so key. Did you know did you think when you left uni with these people, did you think, okay, we're gonna work in theatre? Did you think, oh, I want to do something else, and kind of fell into it? What sort of, did you kind of think then, oh, this is what I want to do?
That's quite hard. So we had made up, no, it isn't. No, it's fine. So we'd made our first show, The Beanfield, which Billy and Dorothy had directed. They had applied for a small pot of money from an amazing department at Warwick called AYT, which is the Institute of Advanced Teaching and Learning, and they do a lot of interdisciplinary practice.
Yeah.
And they gave Billy and Dorothy, I think, £200 to make an experimental show, and so they wanted to stage this reenactment of Battle of the Beanfield with a cast of 6. And we'd made it at uni, had really, really liked it, and then made a decision we wanted to take it to Edinburgh.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Billy and I separately had started working on a show which was Tank, which became our second show. And so we took the Beanfield to Edinburgh. It was a pretty tragic run. It was at 10 in the morning for 2 weeks. We had 3 people in the audience maximum for the first week, and people would always be falling asleep. And then we were really fortunate because a performer called Lucy Ellinson had come and done a workshop at Warwick, and they came and saw the show in Edinburgh and were largely responsible for tweeting about it, and then people started coming, and it meant that the show, we were very, very fortunate because, like, I mean, I've done those shows in Edinburgh where it's so difficult. It just meant that we'd done okay, and it had set us up with a little bit of a profile that we were then able to get some support for making Tank our second show. And we managed to book a tour of the Beanfield. So we did a national tour of our first show whilst getting support for our second show, which we then toured again. And then we got support for our third show. And so actually it was like so fortunate for us that we kind of had, I mean, it's still been difficult because it's difficult running a theatre company and making work in this landscape, but we had support, and I feel very, very fortunate for it because it allowed us to keep going. And it probably meant that we could think, okay, now this is something we want to do. It might not have been the thing originally that we thought we were going to be a theatre company project and put all our time into like keeping that company alive and developing the process of it, but it started to invite us to think, oh, actually we could do this. So I think in the few years after uni, that's when it became a possibility.
Yeah, so I think then my final question for you is, what advice would you give to young people who want to work in this industry, like do well in this industry? What are the sort of things that you've learned that maybe when you went in you didn't know, or would have been nice if someone had told you?
I would say the biggest things that we've learned, or I've learned, is the people you're going to learn the most from and the people that are going to support you the most are actually on your level rather than looking up too much. I think it's quite easy to put a lot of attention on people that have already got somewhere, but the reality is the landscape of theatre changes so much that you're going to get the most support from people who are writing arts council applications at the same level as you, and who are trying to balance like 4 bad 0-hour jobs just to like support themselves in this horrible landscape. So they're going to be the people that support you and that you learn the most from. I think this has taught me, find what your passion is outside of it, so that you know what your identity is outside of a precarious job, because if that job falls away and you felt like you've known who you are for years and suddenly you realize you don't, that can be a very scary thing. So take time and be kind to yourself. I also think just find ways apart, this is sort of saying the same thing about find what you like and find your passion, find ways to value yourself, because this industry can be completely devaluing. I mean, we as a theatre company have done well, and the way people talk about Breach and like the things that we've done, like we're really proud of it, we've worked really hard for it, it is what it is, but it doesn't change the fact that like this sounds like I don't think this should happen. I'm just trying to be honest about it because I'm trying to talk more about this slog. You know, I sent 300 emails off for agents and casting directors to watch the It's True film, and I got 2 replies in total. Like that still happens at this level, and you can be doing well and people can, I mean, like you, like it's so nice that you got in touch and wanted to talk. Like people want to talk to you and they want to know what you have to say, even if you end up accidentally saying the wrong thing and feeling bad about maybe giving the wrong impression of your uni. like you have value, but things in this industry are still gonna make you feel like you don't. So find ways to sort of hold yourself up, because people can look at you and think you're doing really well, and it doesn't invalidate the fact that you're having a really tough time and you're thinking you're useless, but you're not. No one's useless, and you just need to find the strength again. I hope that's okay. That sounds really waffly, but I'm trying to sort of, I think those are the things I'm thinking about in this lockdown, of just nothing's going to overhaul the industry immediately. There are so many things that it's built on which are dehumanizing, I think. I can't imagine there's any other world where you send off so many emails and people don't treat you like you exist with even a receipt. Like, find a way to make yourself feel human and grasp onto that.
No, I think that that's actually really important advice, because I think that whilst people can give advice of like, you should do this course and you should do this, is you should find a mentor, you should do this, but also a lot of it is you need to find yourself, and find those things are important, but at the end of the day you need to find your identity. And it's quite a soul bearing sort of exercise, I feel, entering theatre, and you need to be in some way sure of yourself and at ease with yourself.
Yeah, but I think that, but also that comes and goes.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, I've had times where I'm like, oh, I know exactly who I am now, and I know exactly what I want to write, and then 6 months later you don't, or your personal life falls apart and you get out of a very long-term relationship, which is something that happened to me, and I'm like, oh, I actually don't know who I am now, because I'm actually going through this whole process of learning how to be by myself. And that's obviously feeding into your practice, because your practice is so connected to who you are. So I feel we change and we shift, and it's just allowing yourself to do that, because it probably isn't the same in other jobs. And I don't know, it's one of those things that can be painful but also very rewarding. But yeah, finding a way through it.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. Be kind to yourself, basically.
Be kind.
So I think we're going to end it there, but thank you
great.
so much for all of your advice and for all of your sort of bearing how you came up with your amazing show and your process so far and where you're at now, and for being really honest with us about sometimes it's difficult, and I think that is really important to share as well, and it's really good for the people that be watching this.
Great.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Very well. Bye.